Hey guys, today I'm going to show you how to do a basic wainscoting on your wall. I'm going to walk you through getting the measurements done up, installing it, caulking it, and then painting it. This is how mine turned out, and I'm really happy with it. Alright, so one of the first things you'll want to figure out is the height of your wainscoting, and this will depend on the type of room that it's going in. If it's going in like a living room or dining room, you might want it lower. If it's in a bedroom, you might want it a little bit higher so it goes above the headboard and it will complete the room nicely. I like to use a rule of thirds. So like a living room or dining room, you do like the lower third. So you'll measure the height of the wall, make the wainscoting a third the height. If you're doing it in a bedroom as an accent wall where you have a headboard and you might have lamps and other stuff, I usually measure the height of the wall and do it 2/3 the height of the room. So for this one, the ceilings are about 10 feet high, and I've measured my 2/3 line. I've just marked it lightly with painter's tape because that comes off easy, and just to get an idea of what it will look like. And so I got the pieces of wood here already. I originally wanted to go with about 8 or 9 strips, and I found a value pack of 10 for $40. So that's really cheap. It's $4 a strip, and I have an extra one if I do damage one or something like that. And I got it all cut at the store. It's a it's 1/2 inch by 2.5 inches, also called 1 by 3. That's just the rough cut measurement, but the finished wood here is 1/2 inch by 2.5, and that's just particle or MDF, which is like glued board compressed in a mold. I also got the large piece cut at the store. I just got it all cut at once. I know you're not really supposed to do that. You're supposed to do the cuts at home, sort of measuring them beforehand, but I was just being a little lazy. I just got them all cut at once, and hopefully there won't be any large discrepancies. So once you've figured out your height and then the type of wood that you want to use, the next is to figure out an action plan of how you're going to mount it. There's 2 different ways really. The easier way is to do your 2 strips in the corners of the wall, and then you do your horizontal strip, and then you basically fill in the middle. So you'll do the 2 strips, you'll measure the distance, and say if the distance is 100 inches and you want 8 pieces of strip, you'll divide 100 by 8, and then that will give you the space on centers that you'll need. So you could do that way, where you start in the ends and then you fill in the middle, or you could measure the center of the room and get the center of the room and then go that way out. If you're doing one wall like this, I'd recommend the first method, where you do the ends and then you fill in the middle. If you're doing an entire room, for instance, I would recommend to measure the center of the room and then work your way out. That way, if it continues along a wall, you won't have 2 strips in the corner of the wall. That would look kind of weird. But if you had one a little bit away from the corner of the wall and then the right side a little bit away from the corner of the wall, that would probably fall a little bit better. So I will be using the first method, where I'm going to mount my 2 strips on either side. I'm going to mount the horizontal strip, and then I'm going to measure the distance between both strips and divide by the number of strips that I want. And then that should give me a measurement of how far apart they'll be. Oh, and another tip, by the way, is that the wood that you're using, you want to make sure it's equal to, or at least thinner than, your baseboard. These are 1/2 inch baseboard, and say for example I wouldn't want to be using wood that's 1 inch thick, because it will just jut out like that and look ugly. So I'm using the same size or less than pieces of strip, so that will be nice and flush. Okay, so I have both my end pieces taped up just with painter's tape. They're not nailed or anything. I only did this because I wanted to put the large piece on top of them and just get a level and make sure it was level. And I checked it and it is perfectly level. So I'm going to go ahead and nail the 2 end pieces, and then I'll tack the large piece across. And the nail length that I'll be using is 1.25 inches. And I'm using this because the wood is only 1/2 inch thick. So the nail will be recessed, or the head of the nail will be recessed in the wood like that. And then that would allow for your 1/2 inch drywall, and then say about 1/4 inch to 3/8 of an inch inside the stud. And I mean, these aren't going to be, I'm not going to be hanging anything off this. I'm not going to be mounting any pictures or putting any sort of weight on it. So this will be good enough of a length of nail for this application. Okay, make sure you put your safety goggles on and let's get nailing. So I'm going to start from the bottom and then I'm just going to push it up against the wall here. Make sure that it's flush all the way up, because you don't want to start nailing down here, get halfway up and realize there's a huge gap up here, right? So that looks good. That's nice and flush all the way. And that's good. So, okay, cool. Let me just double check that it is flush. Yep. And now again, remember I'm not hanging anything off this and it's not bearing any weight, so you don't need to go too crazy with the nails. The second one, start in the corner, looks good. Okay, so we have the 2 end strips mounted. I've also taped, it's just taped to the wall there, a center strip just because I'm working alone, and when I put this horizontal piece up, I just want to make sure the middle doesn't bow down or anything, so that when I put the rest of the pieces up, it will be even right across. I've also used little pieces of painter's tape just to mark where the studs are, so that when I'm tacking the horizontal strip across, I just know exactly whether I don't have to be fiddling with anything. Again, I'm working alone, so it's a little bit easier this way. Okay, let's mount the horizontal strip now. So it's just sitting there on top of the 3 posts. So, and I've checked it with a level, and it's pretty level. So we're just gonna tack it on now. There's already a nail tapped right there. Okay, cool. Now with the horizontal piece across, we're just going to measure the center of the left strip to the center of the right strip, and then we're going to divide that length by the number of pieces of wood that we want, plus 1. So in the center, I'd like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pieces of wood, and I'm going to plus 1, 7. So I'm going to divide the length by 7 to get how many, how far apart they should be. Okay, so we're going to start here. So the center of this wood, and I've already measured it, so I'm just showing you. So we start there, and we're going to come all the way across. And I measured it to 122 3/4. So the center of the wood was about right there. Hope you can see that. 122 3/4. There we go. Divide 122 3/4 by 7 and see what we get. 122 3/4 divided by 7 is 17.5 inches. Is what it's going to be from the center of that one to the center of that one to the center of that one. Okay, so this is what I've done, and I see 2 problems already. Well, actually 1 problem, but it happens 2 times. I'll just show you quickly again what I did. So we talked about 17.5 inches. So I started in the center here, and that's about 17.5 inches. I'm just casually lining it up. I'm not doing any exact measurements right now. 17.5. I held that. I came to the next one. 17.5, 17.5, 17.5, and it goes like that. And a final check would be to flip the tape measure this way and just ensure that That's in the center, and then it should be 17.5 on this side. Perfect. So they're all lined up, evenly spaced out. Ideally, this is the number of pieces that I would like. It's 8 total. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 total. And so the problem that I'm seeing here is it's hitting this, I don't know, internet cable, and it's hitting this socket here. So I don't want to cut the strip because it's going to look weird and it's going to bother me that the strip's going to be cut. So I think I'm going to, luckily I bought a value pack of 10, so I have 2 extra ones to play with. So I think I'm going to add another strip into the mix, and then that will shift this left one down ever so slightly, and then this one should shift ever so slightly, and then you get the idea. So hopefully that fixes that problem. Okay, so we're just going to do the same measurement again. This time it's going to be 122 3/4 divided by 8. And 8 is because it's the number of pieces in the middle. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I'm adding a 7th piece, and then plus 1. So you're just going to have to play with it a little bit and see what works for you and what you like in your room. 122 3/4 divided by 8 is 15 and about just over a quarter. So 15 1/4. I'll go play with that and see what that looks like. So I have the centers lightly marked. I don't know if you can see that. It's just very, very light. I don't want to go too heavy with the pencil. And I'm just going to stand them up one by one, like this. I'm just going to get a level. Just kind of eyeball with centers, get a level, make sure that's plumb. And see, that's the receptacle there. Just putting my toe against it because it bows out a little bit. Yeah, and then I'm just going to do that and tack them all the way down. You just want to double check that everything's level. I mean, you don't want to finish the job and then stand back and it looks all crooked and stuff. Okay, so this is it all nailed up to the wall. I did run into a few issues. So I started with the second piece from the left here, and I started from this, and then I went to the second piece from the right, and then I remeasured again just to make sure I was on track coming in towards the center. So this one here, as you know, the socket was a little bit in the way, so I had to kind of shift this strip over just a tiny bit, about 1/2 inch. And then I found out that this one was also in the way, so I had to shift this one over a little bit more than 1/2 inch, maybe about 1 inch. So this one's a little bit off and this one's a little bit off, and then I remeasured and I got to the center here. So it's not too noticeable. Like, I mean, someone would have to point it out to you, and once it's caulked and painted, it will look good. The next step, I'm just going to go over some of these nail holes and just make sure that they're sunk below the surface. Like this one here needs to go down just a little bit more. And then we're going to fill these and caulk it, and then hopefully paint today. Okay, for the caulk, I'm going to use a paintable caulk. So this is good. You don't want to use a silicone because then you won't be able to paint over it. So I'm just going to use this to caulk the gaps and fill it. Another thing I forgot to mention is that some people prefer to glue the strips to the wall as well as nail them. And I didn't want to glue these ones just in case I do decide to change my mind in 5 years time or so. They'll come off quite easily with just pinholes to fill. If you do glue it, just be careful, because if you do change your mind and you pull it off in the future, it could take some of the drywall paper with it as well. So that's why I chose not to glue it. And once you start caulking all these corners and everything, that will sort of help to hold it to the wall as well. Okay, so I'm just going to start with the top here, and then just apply like a bead that's about 1/8 of an inch thick. And you only want to work in small portions. You don't want to just apply this all at once and then run it out. So I'll probably just do that for now. And just use your finger and just kind of press it in. There you go, and that's what that looks like. Now I'll just do the rest of it. So this is it here, all caulked and sanded. This is day 2. So I caulked all the seams here, these ones and everything, and I used wood filler for the nail holes. You really want to make sure that you use wood filler for the nail holes. Caulk doesn't really work for nail holes, and it's really hard to sand. It becomes kind of gummy when you try and sand it. So yeah, you try and use wood filler. So this is it all sanded here, and I'm just going to give it 2 coats of paint. So I'm just working on the first coat now, and then I'll probably do the second coat tomorrow. So the paint I'm using is the same paint as the wall. I'm just using a 2.5 angle brush, just getting the tip of the paintbrush wet. And just going along here, hope you can see that. You just want to get the paint right in there to cover the caulk. And then I turn it this way and I go down. That's what that looks like. And then I'm just going to use a little roller here for the flat pieces of the strip. So this is the finished product here. It's day 3. I've painted it and the paint's dried. I'm pretty happy with the way it turned out. The caulking job was really nice. The nail holes were filled. And I put the cover plates back on for the sockets and it lines up perfectly. And that's the other side where I had to move some of the vertical pieces over a little bit to line up with the edge of the socket there. This side's a little bit bigger by about 1/2 inch, but you don't really notice it if you're just looking at it as a whole. So that's it there.